But most of all, even above the running backs themselves, I got to give credit to Nick Sirianni. And I know we all poked fun at him last week with his flower analogy, but I did say, show me something, coach. Show me the ability to be flexible. He was talking a good game about growth and you got to water and fertilize and everything else, and I'm rolling my eyes. But he did show me something really significant yesterday. Yeah, he showed the ability to be diverse. He showed the ability to go against, quote unquote, his core values. Because after watching the Eagles' first 7 games, you believed that his core values had to be throw, and then throw some more. No, he went back to a running game against the team that was absolutely capable of being run against. Afterwards, he did explain that, hey, we're going to do what we need to do to win games. And that's his job, is to figure out ahead of time exactly what they need to do before the game actually takes place. He went against what we've seen for the first 7 games. He ran the ball down the Lions' throat. That's a very good sign if you're in. First 65. Johnny Mack making his way back from Detroit City. So we've got Jeff Kern instead. With me, Jody McDonald. It's a good day to be here on Birds 365 because the Eagles put forth a very good effort yesterday in a blowout win over the Detroit Lions. Jeff Kerr, he put money away for the Super Bowl for the Eagles after yesterday's performance. The Eagle fans get real psyched up about this win.
I wasn't psyched up about this win, and they won by 38. It's such an enigma to me with this team. I want to see them do it against the Chargers next week, who, by the way, have lost 2 in a row. So I'm not ready to punch my Super Bowl ticket yet, but I will be that guy. They are 1 game out of the playoff spot, and they own the tiebreaker over the team that has the 7th seed.
There you go. We can go positively with that, and we will over the course of today's 2-hour show because tomorrow is NFL trade deadline day, and does yesterday's result change Howie Roseman's thinking as to what he was doing? And you can say all you want about, well, they didn't declare themselves a seller. You move Zach Ertz, you're officially a seller. He may not say it, he might not admit to it, but actions speak louder than words, and they sold off a guy who could help them win games last week. It was the right thing to do, but them trying to deny that they weren't sellers doesn't hold any water with me. The question is, will they continue to be sellers? And they may even attempt to sell and just not be able to get anything done, or they may actually believe that they're in it, as Jeff Kerr just said, quoting the standings with a half a season to go, that they're still in it and actually try and add a piece. Could be very interesting next 20-plus hours leading up to the trade deadline. A dominant win by the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday. And, Jeff, the reason why I at least give them their credit for their win is they dominated in the trenches. And that was something that those of us who were at least quasi-optimistic about the Eagles, I thought they could win 8 games, which would get them close to 500, was because they were pretty damn good in the trenches on both the offensive line and the defensive line. Well, the defensive line this side of Mr. Hargrave has not been great at all. Oh, they were great yesterday. And the offensive line, which has had an injury issue or two, still have one with Brooks out of the lineup, got to do what every offensive lineman likes to do. Drive blocking, run blocking, just let me maul the guy standing in front of me. And it worked like a charm for Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, it did. And one thing I really liked about yesterday, Jody, obviously, they run the ball 46 times and thrown it only 19, something like that. It was a really high run to pass ratio. And it wasn't skewed because they were up so much. They just kept pounding the football. And that's one thing I really like what Nick Sirianni did yesterday. He said, look, we're getting 5-6 yards of carry here. We're just going to keep it up because they can't stop us. And good teams in this league run the football. A lot of the good teams in this league. Baltimore is one of them. Again, it's just one of those factors that you have to help this quarterback out as much as you can. And Jalen Hurts don't care. He only threw the ball 14 times yesterday. I'm sure Devonta Smith doesn't really care. He only had, 2 targets, I think, throughout the entire game, 1 catch for 15 yards, because the Eagles just kept moving the chains. And on defense, Jonathan Gannon actually listened to his players. Now, Fletcher Cox did get paid to cover a screen and did make a tackle yesterday, but he had a pretty good game. The defensive line, they got some extra helpers on the blitz packages as well. I thought that was a big thing. Oh, and by the way, Jared Goff is not a good quarterback. He is definitely not Derek Carr.
That's certainly the case. I saw a stat, I think it was Tim McManus from ESPN added, the highest percentage of running the football, the Eagles ran at 69% of the time. Their highest in 20 years, 20 years. I remember the 30 years. I remember the game the last time they ran it this much. It was against the Buccaneers in 1991. Heath Sherman himself carried it 35 times. The Eagles that day ran it 41. Heath carried it 35 times by himself because they had the immortal Brad Gable at quarterback, and Rich Kotite wanted no part of throwing the football. Gable threw 2 picks in 20 attempts. As a matter of fact, the Eagles blew a 13-0 lead and lost 14-13. But that was the most abused I've ever seen a running back in my life. To that point, and since that Heath was asked to carry it 35 times, they spread it out nicely yesterday. Boston Scott carrying the football. Here comes Mr. Jordan Howard off the practice squad to go in and tote it and get it into the end zone twice. Not only was it what Eagle fans like to see, which is a better balance of running the football to passing the football, but even amongst the backs that carried, Jalen Hurts still led them in rushing with his own production when he pulled it down and took off. That's the way Eagle fans like to see the Eagle offense run.
I agree. And I'll tell you who was in line for a really huge game yesterday before the unfortunate injury, Jalen Reagor. He had 2 carries for 21 yards, and he almost had the touchdown there. I think he ended up with 3 carries for 22 yards, but they were really using Jalen Reagor, I thought, to his strengths with motion and with reverses and counters. And I like that about Jalen Reagor. And I thought Jalen Reagor was going to be in line for a huge day. But that kind of set the tone for what they were doing offensively. I mean, they went to Boston Scott early, and then they went to Jordan Howard. And you didn't see any of Kenny Gainwell. But, Jalen Hurts, if there wasn't a play there, he tucked it down. He ran, had that nice juke. I think it was in the third quarter yesterday. It was a well-balanced attack. And it was weird, Jody, because I'm thinking to myself, I haven't seen them run the football with this precision since probably 2003. And lo and behold, I think it was the 2003 game against the Saints was the last time they had 3 players have over 50 yards rushing. It was McNabb, it was Stu Staley, and it was Brian Westbrook. And lo and behold, the Eagles got 3 players who had over 50 yards rushing. They would have kept those 3 in. They might have all gotten over 100.
Another good stat that I saw, and I think I got to give credit to Reuben Frank for this one. Eagles with 2 running backs with 2 touchdowns apiece. Yesterday, that was the case with Boston Scott and with Howard. The last time that happened, back to Wilbert Montgomery. You got to go all the way back to, and who was the other one? I wrote it down here, and I can't even remember. Oh, Leroy Harris. The immortal Leroy Harris had 2 touchdowns for the Eagles in the game. Now, that's before my time here in Philadelphia, and I came into town 30 years ago. I surely do remember that Heath Sherman game against the Bucs in 1991. I never saw Leroy Harris carry the football live, only on CBS or whoever was doing the NFL, NFC games at that time. Yeah, this was a record-setting performance. Turn back the clock by the Philadelphia Eagles. So you got to give credit to those guys who produced and carried the ball and got those touchdowns. The offensive line, who loves to do the drive blocking, they did. But most of all, even above the running backs themselves, I got to give credit to Nick Sirianni. And I know we all poked fun at him last week with his flower analogy, but I did say, show me something, coach. Show me the ability to be flexible. He was talking a good game about growth and you got to water and fertilize and everything else, and I'm rolling my eyes. But he did show me something really significant yesterday. Yeah, he showed the ability to be diverse. He showed the ability to go against, quote unquote, his core values. Because after watching the Eagles' first 7 games, you believed that his core values had to be throw, and then throw some more. No, he went back to a running game against the team that was absolutely capable of being run against. Afterwards, he did explain that, hey, we're going to do what we need to do to win games. And that's his job, is to figure out ahead of time exactly what they need to do before the game actually takes place. He went against what we've seen for the first 7 games. He ran the ball down the Lions' throat. That's a very good sign if you're an Eagle fan, that your coach can realize, all right, if what I'm doing isn't working, then I have to be flexible and willing to make changes. And Sirianni did just that.
And I like what he said in the post-game presser yesterday. It was, I think it was early in the presser too. He goes, well, I noticed on Monday that we could run the ball against this football team when we were going to do that. And I hope he realizes it now that the team that they're playing this week, they can run the football against, because the Chargers are the worst run defense in football. And you're right, Jody. If that's what it's going to take for this team to win games, then kudos to Nick Sirianni. And, people are going to be like, well, why did it take him to week 8 to figure that out? I'm like, well, hold on a second. Let's back up. As much as we want to get on the guy, he is a first-year head coach in the NFL who has only coached 8 games. And it does take some time for these coaches to kind of get used to the week-by-week process of the NFL. Yeah, I'm sure he wants to throw the football. I'm sure the owner and the general manager want him to throw the football, see what this quarterback is. But the quarterback looked pretty good yesterday, despite only throwing 14 attempts. And, yeah, he didn't look great on certain – but, look, they won the football game, and that's all he cares about. That's all the coach cares about. And, look, Nick Sirianni is not going to get slammed this week because he did what he was supposed to do. He took advantage of a bad defense, a really bad run defense, pounded the football into the ground, and look what the offense did. They scored over 40 points. Well, technically, he scored 38 points, but still, this team scored on 6 consecutive possessions yesterday. I did not think we would see the Eagles do that at any point this year.
And they did just that by pounding the ball down the opposition's throat. Now, we're all in a good mood. We're all talking up there. We're all excited because they got a blowout win. I should be the Eagle fans' favorite this week because, as Xander, our producer, told me before the show, I was the only of all the JAKIB Media personality guys that we have here on the channel, I was the only one that picked a blowout win. And I took the Eagles to win by 10 points. I said, wouldn't be surprised if they won by 2 touchdowns. I'd love to sit here and tell you that I said the Eagles are going to win by 38. Yeah, nobody saw that coming, okay? But being the guy who actually, and I said on my podcast on Hot Read Hits, I teased the Eagles up to 10 points. I thought they had a chance to win by double digits, and I got better than 2-1 odds, but with the Eagles favored by more than 10. So I had a very good day with the Eagles yesterday. That being said, the Detroit Lions are terrible. And I guess I was the only one who acknowledged that and realized that before the game was played. They beat the snot out of the worst team in the National Football League. And that is a league that includes the Houston Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's only one team that hasn't won a game yet, and that's the Detroit Lions. And the Eagles needed to put the beat down on them. They did just that. More power to them. It's going to get tougher with the Chargers coming to town this week. The schedule is easier. You got a couple Giants games, a couple Washington football team games in there, and the Giants haven't lost yet this week yet. They play tonight against Kansas City. I think it's a foregone conclusion they're going to go down. But we did have some – hey, my Jets won yesterday. Couldn't believe they beat the Bengals. So I guess I shouldn't put the L up against the Giants just yet. Yeah, I will. They're not going to win tonight.
I will too.
Chiefs are going to beat them. Beating the Lions. All I'm saying is enjoy it. Feel free to celebrate it. Feel free to feel good about it. Don't get over the top emotional about it because they beat the worst team in the National Football League.
Yeah, I'm not getting too excited over this. Look, they won by 38 points yesterday. I'm like, well, okay, yeah, they should beat the Lions. Not by 38, but they should beat the Lions. And look, I'm one of those people. I picked the Lions to beat them. I did. I picked the Lions to beat them. I thought this was a terrible week for them. The sky was falling after a terrible loss to Vegas. They just didn't look good. The coach didn't look like he was going to adjust. And we're hearing flower analogies. And we're getting guys like Jack Stoll, of all people, defending Nick Sirianni, which, sorry, that just doesn't move the needle for me when defending a head coach. And, Jonathan Gannon was pretty arrogant on Tuesday. And I'm like, well, it just doesn't look good. And there was too much karma going in one direction. So I'm like, you know what? The Lions are going to get a win at some point because they should have had 2 wins before yesterday. But, again, I think every Eagles fan saw that they probably watched the Lions for the first time yesterday. Oh, this is why this team's 0-8, because their quarterback isn't good. You put pressure on him. He makes mistakes. By the way, Jared Goff is 0-15 now without Sean McVay as his head coach. So that's pretty tough. But one thing I got to give the Eagles credit for, the 2 guys I thought that could torch them yesterday, they shut down for the most part. DeAndre Swift, I think he only had like 29 yards rushing. He did not score a touchdown for the first time in a couple weeks. And TJ Hawkinson, I mean, yeah, he had a couple of early catches, but he didn't beat him downfield like I thought he was going to do. They kind of just gave him those 5-yard route and they tackled him right away. And I got to give the Eagles credit for that. And look, the Lions' offensive line is banged up, but their defense is god awful, and that's why they're 0-8. You know, their defense just can't stop anybody. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, okay, they got a big game next week against the Chargers, but the Chargers are coming in losing 2 in a row, and they got to go to the East Coast. So Justin Herbert's a really good quarterback. They're going to have their hands full there. But as you said, Jody, the schedule does get easier. It does, because then you got Denver coming up, and you got to go Denver. But then you got the Saints, and all of a sudden, I know they're good. They're really good, but Jameis Winston is not going to be their quarterback the rest of the season. He's out. Drew Brees ain't coming back.
First thing on TJ Hawkinson, he did have 10 catches, 11 targets, 10 catches. That's pretty high percentage to make the catches. 89 yards. He didn't even get to 100 yards with 10 catches. That's not a guy out of the back. That's a tight end. He's supposed to be able to get up the field some. The Eagles let him catch underneath. They tackled. That was one thing the Eagle defense did yesterday. They tackled. They're not a bad tackling team. They always leave themselves room. They just let people catch it too far down the field in front of them. They pushed the safeties up. And yes, Jonathan Gannon, I'm giving credit to Nick Sirianni because he proved when I have to adjust, I will adjust. Same thing for Jonathan Gannon. And I was pretty critical of him over the last couple of weeks against Tampa and against the Raiders, that he just sits in that zone defense and just dies by 1,000 paper cuts. Death is death is death. He didn't. He adjusted yesterday. Although none of the blitzers got home and got any sacks, he came with a couple of different blitzes from a couple of different areas. It opened things up for the other guys on the defensive line to get not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, 6 sacks for the Eagle defense yesterday. That's a tip of the cap to Jonathan Gannon, because much like Nick Sirianni, he talked the talk. He had faith in his system. I don't have a system. We're going to – well, no, it looked the same to me every single week for the first 7 weeks. He mixed it up yesterday. He showed some flexibility. That's a good sign for the Eagles defense going forward.
Yeah, it's almost like the Eagles did not face Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Derek Carr, or a really good quarterback this week, and it kind of helped. But you're right, Jody. He did make the adjustments. You know, he didn't play his safeties as deep as he could. And I think that's more of, look, you guys have what? Khalil Raymond at receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown. These two ain't beating us. They're not. You know, this isn't Mike Evans, Chris Godwin going up against them. This isn't Henry Ruggs and Byron Edwards. This is who the Lions are. They are very weak at receiver. They probably have the worst receiving core in the National Football League. And John McGann said, you know what? You're going to beat us. You're going to have to get the ball out quick. And Jared Goff just couldn't do that. They got him out of his comfort zone. And next thing you know, Josh Sweat's having 2 sacks. And I had not noticed until yesterday, Javon Hargrave was the only Eagles player with over 2 sacks until Josh Sweat had 2 yesterday. So, yeah, that was pretty interesting. I think it was the Eagles' first time they had 6 sacks in the game since 2011 or something like that. It was definitely a day where the defensive line got the feast on Jared Goff. And look, the Lions had no Big V. He was out. Taylor Decker's been out. I mean, they're just beat up on the inside. Oh, and by the way, Penei Sewell, I think he's going to be a good prospect in this league. Josh Sweat and Derek Barnett, they kind of beat him to shreds yesterday. They welcomed him to the league in a big way.
They did, and that's kudos and credits to Jonathan Gannon because he showed the flexibility to be able to do different things, but it was to the Lions. I'm sorry, Eagle fans. I must come back to this every, I don't know, 5, 10, 20 minutes on the show. I'll try not to do it too often, but the truth is the truth. They beat up the worst football team in the worst squad in the National Football League. That's the Detroit Lions. So win is a win is a win. 3-5 and 3-5 is not terrible. Will Howie Roseman, this is what we're going to discuss with our first guest when he joined us. Will Howie Roseman do a 180 and turn into a buyer at the trade deadline tomorrow afternoon? Because give me the stats about the Eagles' playoff positioning as of right now, Jeff Kerr.
Well, you want the good news or the bad news?
I want the good news.
All right. Well, the good news is they're only 1 game out of the Carolina Panthers. Oh, and by the way, they beat the Carolina Panthers. And they would tie them. They would own the tiebreaker. Now, here's the bad news. They are 11th in the playoff standings. There are a couple teams ahead of them. And one of them beat them, the San Francisco 49ers. So, again, it's all hope is not lost. That's all I'm saying, Jody.
The other problem that is a reality is the Dallas Cowboys with Cooper Rush rallied to get a win last night. I thought they were dead in the water. I loved the Cowboys all week because I thought Dak Prescott was going to play. I had heard that, all right, he's not practicing, but he's feeling better and he's talking a good game. And then as the week went on, people started to believe he wasn't going to play. The line went from Cowboys minus 1.5 to the Cowboys giving 1.5 to Cowboys getting 4 points. The line moved over 5 points.
I jumped on it too because I think the NFC North stinks, and I was right. I'm like, okay, I don't know if Cooper Rush can beat them or not, but I'm going to take Cowboys in this one straight up. Oh, man, I cashed in last night.
Yeah, and Cooper Rush with a late touchdown pass to Amari Cooper won. So, yeah, the Cowboys are going to win the NFC. Sorry to say it, Eagle fans. They're just not going to give up the division. They've got, as of right now, 1 loss. The Eagles have 5. The Redskins have 6. And the Giants will get their 6th tonight. So, yeah, I'm thinking the Cowboys are in pretty good stead.
By the end of the night, the Eagles would be in second place in the NFC East if the Giants lose.
Yeah, second place. Not the worst place in the world to be. All right, he is Jeff Kerr. I'm Jody McDonald. We are your Birds 365 guys today. Johnny Mack coming back from Detroit. He'll be back on the show here tomorrow. Coming up next, we talked to one of our faves. Covered the Eagles forever, still doing work. Now he's working with McMullen. I feel badly about that. But our buddy Paul Dunwich joins us next here on Birds 365.